I'm Italian, and that's why he's there, because in reality we do talk like that. And I'm a design director, and that's our job title, for brand and creation at Adidas. If you want to know what that means, you can ask me, and I will try to give you like a bit of what actually it means. Brand, it's obvious. Creation, a bit less. But you can imagine at Adidas, the key, let's say, business is creating shoes and apparel, right? So it's not what I do. And today, and again, thanks for the other contributor, I'm going to talk about how to design outcomes. So basically, as a product designer, or a designer in general, or a product professional, you cannot just contribute to do nice features, nice interaction. You can actually impact an organization. To do that, I will use our design system, how we made the design system. Lots of the content you're going to see is nothing new, is not covered by NDA, so it's public available. Of course, again, if you want after, you can ask me something, but most of the words, the things, were actually coming from our, let's say, co-presenter, our co-host before. And this is my email address, which unfortunately you cannot read, but is my name, surname, adidas-group.com. If you want to have a question afterward, or you want to keep in touch, I will try to answer everyone. And there is also my LinkedIn, where you don't find me as an Adidas employer, because it's a bit complicated when you work for such a big company. And you can guess why. And so, at Adidas, despite what Roman was saying, right, it is a very evil empire, right? So it's a corporate. Everything works slow. It is true. You need to deal with thousands of people for doing basic things. That's absolutely true. But it's coming with some perks. And those perks are having like very good return for you as an individual, for your growth, and so on. And one of the things I appreciated the most is we have lots of guests at Adidas, a lot. Sports superstar, music superstars, and 2-3 years ago, Don Norman. I hope you guys know who is him, right? You all know who is him? There is anyone who doesn't know? Okay, Don Norman, you might heard the company Norman Nielsen Group for user experience. That's Norman. That's the Norman guy. He was vice president or senior vice president at Apple with Steve Jobs. He's a very inspiring leader, super inspiring leader. So 3 years ago, 2019, he came at Adidas to basically explain certain things, which I cannot tell you, but because we paid lots of money for him to come, so we cannot share for free, I'm sorry. And I had the opportunity to sit with him at the same table, and we start talking. As soon as he understood what was my job, I was, oh, that's nice, and we start talking. And immediately, our discussion went through what was very hot or super on fire in that time in corporate world, right? Back then, and you heard today different times, like how the company culture is important. Our HRs, but not just ours, the HR of pretty much any corporate in the world was heavily investing on hiring people to train employees to design thinking. Design thinking was all the rage. Everyone wanted to be design thinking. Why? Because design thinking is helping people to find creative solution, hopefully cheaper, and I will show you why, to problem for a corporate. So I asked him something which is maybe silly, but I asked him why they just don't hire designers. So why instead of training, I don't know, an economic degree person to be an amazing leader with design thinking, why they do not just hire a designer? It would be much cheaper, faster, right? So essentially I asked him, why would not lead as a designer a company? And he smiled, obviously, because it was a funny question to ask to him. And he told me, in reality, even if we are really, really good, we don't go at the top of a company. And this is our fault. This is a fault of our designers, because sometimes, despite of what we claim about ourselves, we miss to understand how certain decisions are made in a company. And in a company like Adidas, but any corporate, you deal with lots of money. People want to know how you spend this money. So you need to understand how those money are used. There was a very simple thing, right? And it was making me thinking a lot of things. Because when he was saying to me, yeah, because you are not worthy to go there, it was like activating something in me. Or in me or people around me. And I put this pressure to everyone working with me back then. And I said, why we are not there, right? So, I mean, I don't know you. But when I get into a job, I want to do great products. I want to be successful. I want to make a huge difference on everything. And then there is a legitimate question you need to ask to yourself. What is a great product? Can you define what is a great product? Can anyone as a guess what is a great product? Someone want to try? So, unfortunately, it's a little bit more sad. Because if you create product, and at Adidas we do shoes, a great product looks something like that. So a consumer very happily spends lots of money to buy our shoes. That's what we do, right? And this is what makes a great product a success. And in fact, any company, and I think Igor was mentioning it, need to worry about their revenue. They need to grow, they need to make money, because otherwise they're not sustainable. If they're not sustainable, they need to shut down. We all lose jobs. I personally was working on a startup in London. It was Christmas, I think it was 2010 or 11. They call us in a room like this and say, guys, we are shutting down, you are all fired. Why? Because we are not making money. So the people paying for our startups to build our nice features, they were saying, okay, when are you going to pay us back? In a corporate, you don't even have the options. That should happen all the time. Because you heard about the number of people that need to be paid from Roman. We are over 60,000 people, not over 50, over 60. We are nearly 70,000 people. So this should happen, always. And when you grow, you need to be sustainable or growing. So you need to have your expenses, your operational expenses, as efficient as possible. So when you do a product in a corporate like Adidas, which does not do software as a job, our job is not doing software, right? We do use, however, software to be more efficient. Despite what you think, our e-commerce, for example, is a margin-driven, is not a net revenue-driven, and it's obvious. We don't really care. You don't really care where you buy our product. We care, because if you buy in our e-commerce, our margin is higher. That's obvious. And when you start understanding that, and you start clustering where you're living in a corporate, then you start thinking where actually you can make an impact. What you have to basically do to be valuable for your organization, which is nice to be able to create nice features, nice interaction, but if you want to be impactful, so basically sitting at the table, as you always heard, apparently there is a table. If you want to sit there, you need to talk about this. So you go to your CFO, your CEO, if you can. I cannot talk with my CEO, but let's say I could. That's what they want to know. That's what they want to know from me. Otherwise, I cannot even go there. Doesn't make any sense to go, because that's their problem, obviously. And as a designer, we have this amazing gift. We have this gift which is very few professional practitioners have, right? We have the ability to influence our business, influence the life of people who were saying it. You were saying it? Yes. You have the ability to change the life of people, right? By creating great experiences. This is a fundamental thing which I remark because that's actually what I'm going to talk about. A great experience. People is not buying anymore your product or using your product because it's pretty. They may eventually, but it has to be the experience. You need to deliver something so good, which is so memorable. I think Igor was pitching a bit about it, but that's actually the reality. The reality. If you want to know about this, there is a book by Joe Pine, which is called The Experience Economy. I don't know if any of you read it. It's a great book. It's explaining exactly this. And this is the reality. The people who design the experience, it's us. It's our job designing the experience. So don't forget that. So if you want to be impactful, do not forget about that. And I would like to give you like an example of this basic concept can be applied to literally everything. Because it turns out, if you want to be impactful and you manage to change the life of people, right? And someone was saying, to Igor presentation, you sell memories, right? I don't know who was, but actually was so on point. I really love that. Well, in our world where we do physical product, this is happening too, right? This shoes is a particular shoes. It's called Adizero Adios Pro. It's a running shoes. It's a 300 euro running shoes. You can basically run with these shoes, I think, 150 to 100 kilometers, no more. So 5 marathons you need to throw away. But he has a particularity. He has a particularity which makes these shoes unique. He basically broke at least dozens of world records. And what is happening is people buying it because they think with these shoes, they run faster. And if you ever run a marathon or if you ever run 10 kilometers and you challenge yourself, right, about your time, you buy these shoes because it makes you faster. This is the science behind, if you go on the internet to look for it, it's true. It makes you running faster if you know how to run. Because if you don't know, it doesn't help. Yeah, of course. I mean, you need to be good on running. This is a shoes which is basically, in fact, those guys are professional runner, obviously. But if you run properly, these shoes, which has like this sole in carbon, makes you running faster because it helps you to go faster. But you need to have a good technique. So, as you see, this shoes was designed, briefed, to make a running shoes looking better, creating an outcome, creating a change in the way people run, right? Obviously, this goes end-to-end with an impact, with a financial impact, because these shoes sold a lot, and it's not a cheap shoes. It's not a cheap shoes. This thing, obviously, is applying even better in digital world, when we do software. And as I mentioned, outcome-based work is nothing new. I bet most of you read the book Lean Startup, Eric Ries's book. Great. Lean Startup, I don't know who was mentioning I think was Ilya was mentioning the Lean canvas. The Lean Startup, today we heard a lot about Agile, right? This presentation is based mostly on Lean. Why? Because Lean for discovering problem is probably the best way. Do you know the difference between Lean, Agile, Waterfall? Pretty much. So very briefly, you have like two worlds, right? You have a world which is, let's call it problem, and a world called solutions, right? So normally, and none of the three is wrong. None of the three is wrong. All of them are good. Don't get this trap. So when you know the problem, right? You know the problem, and you know exactly the solution, you go to waterfall. Doesn't make any sense to go somewhere else, obviously. If you know the problem, and today we heard a lot, you need to be focused on the problem. Love the problem. One of the principles of Igor is absolutely true. Sorry, I mentioned Igor because it was in English and I don't speak Russian. I don't want to disrespect anyone. Apologies for that. I'm not polyglot like most of you. And it's true. So if you know the problem, right, but you don't know how to solve it, you try out. And this way of doing things is called Agile. Was invented, actually was engineered in Japan through the Kaizen and made it working, right? But there is another case, which is, I don't know the problem, but I still need to do something. And the OKR Roman was mentioning are done for that. You don't know you don't have an idea which problem is, right? We have a drop in conversion. What actually means, which problem is exactly? We don't know. And you don't know, of course, the solution. In that case, you go lean. And again, someone much smarter than me, thought to put in a book. Lean UX. I don't know if any of you was reading this book, but it's pretty much explaining those concepts, those ideas of working towards outcomes. Yet, if you read the book, it's plenty of theoretical things, putting on practice, at least for myself. You might are smarter than me, I hope so, because the book was quite best-selling. It's not very practical, and it's very complicated to explain this lean approach, lean or agile approach in a waterfall world. And bloody corporates are waterfall, because we have, in January, the budget allocation, and who's giving you the money wants to know in December what you're gonna give them back, because otherwise they don't give you money. That's how it works. And you need to be very thoughtful on how to phrase your demand. You cannot tell them, give me 2 million, I do something. That's of course, nobody will do that, right? Why you should do that? So when Don Norman was telling me, you need to find out what makes you special in a room. So if you go in a room with the CFO, right? And the CFO is telling you, what's your job? And is telling him, a designer, why you are even here. So you need to have an answer to him. You need to explain him why you're there. I think I was using my creativity because he suggested, use your creativity to find the answer. And my answer started actually with this book. My creativity elaborated a possible solution in this world, in Lean UX. But then I turned out it was not helping him much. But I kept digging. I kept digging, and I found out actually there is something which worked very well for me. And if you guys want, can have a look as well, which was the Kellogg's Foundation model. I don't know if any of you heard about that. Kellogg's Foundation is basically a no-profit organization. It's a foundation, right? They develop lots of things, including this logic model for developing what I'm going to show you in a second. It's very interesting. The white paper is very interesting, but basically what is the logic model saying is something like this, right? So there is two worlds. The first world is what you are planning to do, right? The second world is going to be actually what you want to achieve, right? That's the logic model. Why this model is very good in the corporate world? You can use it in anything. Don't get me wrong. You can use it in any single product you do. You just need to learn how to use it. It's good because it's hiding all the hustle to make it happen. And when you present your solution, right, it looks like a waterfall thing. So predictability is pretty straightforward because as you see, also because the number is misleading, you think you need to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and I get my product. In reality, these things work the opposite. So you need to start from here, and you go back. And when I was doing the design system, I entered all the problem, failure, the guys that were mentioning before. So it was actually a great thing, and I will talk about that. But to explain to you what is an outcome, which is the crucial point for everything, I would like to show you something. And first, I want to share with you the definition of these things, because from now on, when I talk about these three things, I mean with impact, the result you want to achieve, right? That's what I mean. The outcome, I don't know what you mean with outcome, but an outcome is a measurable change in the behavior of who is using your product, okay? Who is using your product. And the output, the physical work you do. So for example, if you're doing a product design, you ship features, that's your output. It's not your outcome. Okay? Question here, do you get it, the three things? Okay, when I talk about it, I'm not going to repeat these things, so just bear with me. And I would like to share with you an example of outcome. So this is our main entrance in the campus, as Roman, you remember. And basically, this is the exit of. This is actually a picture I took it for today, and there is this exit from the park house where we leave the car, right? So it happened like in this intersection, people was turning left, creating accident with people driving on the other way. So German authority, which are very, very picky with those things, they say no, we need to fix it. Right, we need to fix it. Okay, so I can show you what they did because this one actually I retouched. This is the original picture because the original picture I don't have it, so I retouched it. So this is what they did. Ta-da! Yeah, there is a problem though. There is a problem though. The guy is still going on the left. Yeah, in fact, going back, this solution didn't reveal any impact. No impact at all. The intersection is still very dangerous. They created, 3 beautiful outputs and 1 outcome which didn't happen. And bear in mind, as a designer, as a practitioner, this one down here, they are perfectly executed. They are just correct. That's not what you need to judge, right? There is absolutely no problem there. They made it brilliantly well. Why that? If I want to show you the logic model, I can show you what actually happened in most of your minds. You were doing it right, but you are not counting. But most of you did basically this. Say, I'm going to put some traffic light, stop signs, so ever, because in this way people will respect the rule and they don't go left, right? So the intersection is safer. We just saw it's not going to happen. And why that? Do you guess why? Because first, nobody bothered to understand why it's more convenient to go on the left. Nobody. And secondary, and I think all of us experienced this in the pandemic, changing the behavior of people is a very tough job. You don't do it. You can create all black patterns you want. You are not making a great product. You are just having a shortcut on what you have to do. And that's what's happened there. On time, on budget, on scope. Outcome, 0. Impact, 0. And I work for a brand, right? So the biggest assets we have at Adidas is our brand. In terms of affinity brand, right, we don't have rival. We have very few rival in the world. I know you guys are most people Nike people. I saw you, don't think I didn't see you. I did. No, you can keep it. You can burn them. You do whatever you want. You do. Our biggest assets, right, is our brand, right? For affinity brand, we are amazing, right? For this positional, not that good. For a few products, we are, like for the running shoes. For this positional brand, we are not amazing. So when I understood how to make impact, right, I wanted to be impactful. Considering what was my job at Adidas, I was hired at Adidas in 2014 to do one job only, which was get into the center of excellence of digital transformation, set up product design, like some of you, in product area, and change team. This gave me a huge knowledge of Adidas. It's pretty cool. I didn't have time to basically socialize too much, but that's what was my job. And when I got into my first assignment, right, because I'm a design leader, and design, like all the leaders you heard before, I want to be efficient on what I do. When I want to do great product, I want to be efficiently and at scale. And here you can do that. So that's why when the first time I got assigned to a product, I was actually saying, okay, we made product at Adidas, right? Specifically. Do we have guidelines? Well, this is a very good thing because I start digging. Because I'm a designer, I like to start digging. I found out basically what we had. And obviously we had a brand manual, which was a big one. Then we had like six design guidelines, 6. And the most shocking thing for me, 50% of our budget, actually was more, of our budget for each project, for each product, was going to front-end development. Do you want to know why? So, first reason is, I think it's true. Actually, because I experienced this. When you have 6 design guidelines, right, means you don't have any. Means people can interpret whatever they want. Means they do whatever they like. So we had product owners plotting with the UI. They were hiring decent designer from agencies. And guys, we spent lots of money on that, a lot, to create pretty nice UI, right? So meaning, if you have, let's say, I don't remember who was Anton presenting 9 months for his product to go live, means for months and a half, they're just going to make the UI pretty because there was nothing behind. And that was shocking. For me, it was shocking. Because at the scale of Adidas, 50%, it's a lot. Believe me, it's a lot. And however, this triggered what most of you would have done, right? So what exactly we need to do an application? So that's what I did. With my team, we went there and started saying, okay, let's figure out what we need to do an application. It turned out 90% of the web application, back then there were web application, were actually done by some buttons, which you can recognize if you ever use an Adidas product. Some, obviously, way to consume product data, right? So it could be an image, could be data, metadata, or it could be actually a product card, for example. This is pretty much used everywhere at Adidas, right? We have a way to search for product, either filtering or searching. Searching is a big topic at Adidas. This is better not touching because we open things. And then there was like another. So with these few elements, you can build an application at Adidas, a functional application. The thing is, people were so much focused to please their manager, because that's how it works. Executive people, they have lots of trouble. You don't want to be the one bringing another trouble, because otherwise you're going to be screwed. So you don't do that. You just take your role, like Roman brilliant explained this morning. And what happened, it's like, in my area, the first area was allocated. I basically spent some time with my developer and with the first designer I hired. By the way, back then we were 5 designers. I hired the first 4. Now we are 210. And we are split in 7 locations. And we grow because not necessarily the need, probably, but I would say it was a good thing. So overall, it was a good thinking. And this specific thing I'm showing you became the foundation for the entire Adidas. Every single application, either via architecture, front-end architecture, or via design language, is using these things. And this is basically what I'm sharing with you, how I made it, because I went through a journey to make it, because I come from tech industry. When I came to Adidas, it was the first time I worked for a traditional company. So I had to explain things in a way I never did before. So the importance of articulating your design, that's important. It's very, very important. So when we basically did this, let's say, auditing of the UI, we coded, we designed. Initially, it was done, if I'm not wrong, the first version was done in I think it was a Photoshop, the first version. There was no Sketch. Sketch was very small. Then we did in Sketch, and now it's in Figma. Even though Figma people, I don't like them too much, to be honest. I have to be honest. They're very aggressive in the markets. I can tell you a story after, maybe. So when we did it, we basically publish it. We put in a repository and we publish it, right? And we call it Yarn. Why Yarn? Because behind the Yarn, it's basically everything we do at Adidas. Everything starts with the yarn of a material. That's what we do at Adidas, right? So we thought a good way was to call our repository Yarn. The idea of design system, I thought was not even my task. I said, why should bother too much? I just do it like everyone does, get my salary, get my promotion, and leave, like everyone does. But then I think a little bit of things happened in my life in the meantime, and I made, okay, I think if I really want to have an impact at Adidas, that's the best way. That's the best shot I have. I can go over, right? So if you go to certain companies, right, you are incentivized, like Amazon, you are incentivized to make the company better, right? So since I worked there, I say, well, let's give a try in Adidas as well. I said that's what I did. And that's what basically my journey with the design system happened. I'm not going to tell you how to do a design system. I think pretty much all of you have an idea how to do it. And I personally think learning to do it, because it's something you do as a designer, it's one of the best experience you can get, right? So I'm just telling you what lots of things you should apply. There are basic things, right? But some certain behavior you should think to make the product working, because that's a product. And it's one of the few products where you're going to lead. You're going to lead it. As a designer, you're going to lead it. Because initially, you don't have a product owner, you don't have a BA. You need to convince the developer to follow your crazy idea and so on. But basically, when I start making this thing, right, I had to basically think about, okay, I need to evolve it. This has to go from a library for 2-3 people, right, for 2-3 products, or product, to something which is going to serve over 200 products. That's quite a journey, and how you will start. I think there is no book who's explaining it. I like to read, and I like to dig in best practices. Yet, there is no book that's going to tell you how to do it. Why? Because each company, each environment is contextual to that specific situation. And that's what's happened to me as well. And I encourage what every good product manager, like yourself, like our leaders, can tell you happened to them as well, because they actually talk about that. And the first one is, when you do some decision, you need to kind of predict your future. In my case was, how I make my library working for everyone. I don't know. Honestly, I didn't know. That's why Lean was ending. And the second one, what is called the cause-effect theory, which both were like a big learning, something I could not experience before, because in my previous job, I had someone else doing it, right? So I never had to worry about that. At Adidas, I had to do it. So the first one, it's something very interesting, because when all the guys that were talking about data-driven or data-informed things, there is, or even quantitative data and qualitative data, what is happening is something which is very bizarre. You use those information which are happening in the past, because that's what is happening. So you test even an interface based on certain things you know to try to predict the future. And it's a very complicated job. Now, if you do it at scale, this is extremely complicated. The way to solve it, and I think partially the pool before they were mentioning it, there is basically this idea of measuring things in a different way. The lagging KPI, right, which is, let's say, what you want to obtain, okay, how you go to the impact, your impact, and what leads to that impact. So the leading KPI. So as a designer, even though you are maybe like, I don't remember his name, sorry. Your name. No, you. Yevgeny. Yevgeny? Yeah, Yevgeny. He doesn't trust the data yet they are the most powerful one. Because you don't have to bother too much, they're extremely cheap. Someone was saying it's the cheapest way, it's true, it's the cheapest one. The only thing is you need to understand what you need to track, right? And I'll give you like an example, and this example I wanted to do with the example of Adidas store, but since we have the master of IKEA furniture, we can use IKEA because I think, and this is actually a true story, when I was working for retail at Adidas, I was setting up the experience team in retail. Most of the things, they were inspired by what I think is the biggest physical consumer experience at the moment. It's been like this for years. I don't know many times you go to IKEA, and I don't know many times you manage to not buy anything. Did you ever do that? So this is happening. This is because they offer you a journey which is exactly doing that. So think about that and say this, right? Question yourself, what are the things, right, in the consumer behavior, in that specific context, in the store, that will help you to sell more product, right? Think about that. This you can apply to any product, right? To any single product you work on. When you figure out that, you let them doing more than that. So in the case of IKEA, putting here and there those Euro 95 or whatever they sell for everything, is they know, we look at it and we buy it. They engineer, they design such an amazing experience which changed the way we perceive the shopping, because we go there thinking we are making an amazing purchase. In reality, we buy something which 2 weeks later we never touch again if it's so cheap. And we know also, like the store, probably the furniture, they're not even the best one, but we still buy them. And that's how they did it. That's exactly how they did it. So when I was working for Adidas retail, I was using a lot IKEA example, because IKEA, I think, did so good on that. They are mastering it. They are so good, you can't believe. So I spent lots of times going to IKEA and understand why exactly they have this error. Jesus, there is a reason behind. So in our case, I went to, I don't know if you've ever been to a flagship store of Adidas, so the big one. We used to have one in Moscow, now it's shut down. We have one in London, in Paris, pretty much in any big city we have. There are specific stores which are huge spaces, and when we're studying how to place the product, right, what we wanted to do, having people getting in, and that we are good on doing that, because we have a quite sizable budget for bringing people to our stores. But often we didn't know how to make those guys purchasing things. So what we did is say, okay, what makes them purchasing? And we observed, using the clerks in the store, they were telling us, the more shoes they try, the more likely they're going to buy it. So we arranged our store. This is an old thing, because nothing is happening now anymore. They're very old. No, I'm joking, it's happening too. And we make everything to make possible for the consumer to try shoes, because we know the more they try, the more they touch the sneaker, the more likely they're going to buy it. This came with lots of things, right? For example, there was like a lagging KPI to help us to sell more. And this you can apply in everything, in every single product you're working on, even independently without your product owner. And that's what I basically did for my design system, for Adidas design system. What I wanted to obtain is, I wanted to save time on development, because that number was scary. Nobody will take me seriously. But I want also to make sure, and this is coming to the leadership piece, the designer working with me, they had the best work experience they ever had. And when they leave the team, they change job, they are better than they were how they came at the beginning. This obviously was not making things, but I want to also, I always thought assembling an interface should be a commodity job, should not be a brain, time-consuming, nothing, should happen in no time. I want a designer to solve problems, understand problems, and solve it, not crafting UI, right? And what was the leading indicator I was on track in doing that? Well, as a developer, the line of codes. The more line of codes that were coming from our design system, the more faster they were. Design components. The more pieces of components a designer was using to assemble a UI, the faster he was doing this job. So I was doing well. You can read it. If you have questions, you can explain to me. But I hope I gave you like an idea of what this thing is about. Obviously, when you do a design system, there is certain things which you never forget, right? So what is the main reason you do a design system? Anyway, we have a brand. So if we don't have a place where we host those brands, assets, our brand slowly is going to be, getting away. And this, I think, it was one of the biggest learning I had, because I had to be very creative to figure out how to measure it. Because it's not that easy. You need to be very creative. So I think it was a brilliant learning. And I really hope this stimulates you as much it stimulated me the first time I was learning how to use them. Because I think this is going to change so much on how you approach your KPI, which is going to change also a lot in your career. Because most of the thing people is going to want to understand for you when they hire you is actually this, right? And then there is a second problem which I faced. What is called the cause-effect theory. So the cause-effect theory, for those who are not familiar, is I do something, like the guys in the traffic, in the intersection, I do something because I hope something else happens. That most likely you're going to be wrong, as I proved before. Most likely you're going to be wrong. And I will show you why you're going to be wrong. Because that's actually what happened to me. So when I did the library the first time, right, I did something so small, it was brilliant. In fact, I say it was working perfectly well. It was saving time, a lot of time for those products. It was super cheap. I think I didn't spend any money from Adidas. I just was a side gig from people. And it was so simple, the maintenance was nearly nothing. One of the biggest costs in a corporate is what we call KSR. You know KSR? Okay. KSR as basically means literally keep system running. So you do a product, but you need to make it maintaining it. That's a huge cost. And when you have lots of legacy system, it's a sizable part of the budget in technology. And basically, one of the things you don't want to do is ending up of being a trap for the organization. So we did something which was extremely cheap to maintain. Anyone could jump in and maintain it. It was no job. So you start feeling pretty much like this, right? So yeah, you did a good job. I'm unbeatable. I'm so cool. With my component, I can build anything, like a Lego blocks. And that's actually was my feeling. Was the feeling of pretty much anyone working with me back then. But then happened something else. When these things got mainstreamed in the organization, and in the organization means you go basically to a town hall or you go to the CIO knowing about this, other people, they basically get curious to say, okay, what is this thing? It's going to help me to be better, whatever. And then you get a different point of view. You actually start facing the reality. You start facing the reality, and the reality, unfortunately, looks like this. because honestly, without admitting the limits of what you do, you don't get exactly what you need to be better. And here is exactly where, back then, me and my team, we did a mistake, inspired by me, to be honest with you. Because you have lots of people complaining, it's not enough, we want more. So the first thing I did is this. Start putting all the components people was asking me. So whatever I wanted to do, it got lost. So talking about value was gone. I was not delivering any value. I was creating a monster. I was creating a piece of shit, literally. Which was nice for me because I was feeling, and in corporate environment, you can get there like a god because people, I was creating dependency. Because dependency is not just a trouble if you want to get data, but dependency is also very good if you like politics. Because if you are needed to do something, you are very powerful. So what I did, I was playing that game, but without being able to do it. And in fact, it was a disaster. Honestly, it was a disaster. If I was my manager, I would have slapped me because I was ridiculous. So I had to change. And figured out what to do. And what do you think will be the problem for that? Look, there is a thing, this is a good thing. There is one thing, however, you need to learn to incorporate. When you do things, unless you're running out of let's say, creativity to keep having it, you are not going to shut down. I'm a designer. I need to focus on which problem I actually need to solve. And the problem I need to solve was just this. What I was hoping, my hypothesis from day one was, if I create a good system, designer, developer, they will save lots of time, right? Doing UI, so the output, and the outcome, because they will change the way they work. And their job will be much faster. So I will have like a huge impact in the organization. That's what basically the only thing I had to do. So I just focused on that. And I stopped saying yes to everything. Someone was saying, it's good to say no. That's when you need to start learning how to say no. That's exactly the point. Because then you get burned. And if we go back, and that's what I wanted to share with you, was if you use the logic model from the Kellogg things, it works perfectly, because the logic model can be easily explained to anyone. Because as I mentioned, the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is actually a step which looks very familiar to a CFO, to a CIO. Why? Because it looks like I do this, then I do that. It looks like waterfall. Though when I was doing it and I figured out on my own experience, I had to start here because I wanted to save money. That was my job, right? And to do that, I had to have people working faster, right? Not because I want to enslave them, don't get me wrong. Because certain things that can be done faster, objectively. And the design system is the actual output. That's what I have to do. But I don't need to do a design system hoping people will work faster, we use it. In fact, this design system is not mandatory. So I wanted to challenge everyone to present something which is going to be more tailored for Adidas. You can use it or not, right? If you are finding something, for example, Flutter, you know Flutter UI, I guess everyone knows it. So it's a framework from Google. It's the cousin of Material UI. Flutter is very good for creating a mobile application, right? So these things is not that good for that because we do not do native components. We do web components, vanilla component, and we use Ionic to transform it. Some people say Flutter is faster, which is fine. But if you're using a web application and you don't use it, I'm going to ask you why you don't use it. And you need to be very good on convincing you don't use it because you have reasons. And this is another thing which it came. This led me, however, to another thing which was mildly interesting. And today someone mentioned it, the North Star metric. So when you start measuring if you're doing good or you are on the path of doing good and you want to apply it for a product, it's not suggested, it's nearly mandatory to use a North Star metric. North Star metric is a unique KPI you want to follow for measuring the health, or better, the experience of your product. For example, YouTube, how you think is measure YouTube, North Star? Number of messages is actually the number of characters. Why? Because the more characters are plugged in means the more information they have. Same thing for you too. In my case, it was something similar, which I guess you will know what is. If you want to share with me what is, I will appreciate, but I would like to explain only how I end up with that, right? Because if you understood a little bit the leading and lagging KPI, basically those are actually input metric, yeah? And those input metrics, I put just 3 because I like 3, because it looks nicer, but you can put as many as you want, obviously. And the leading KPI was actually ending up to save money, like my lagging KPI. But then I will start saying, how I measure if I'm doing well. I cannot go there and spend all my life on creating slides and things to do that. So we did like a kind of exercise, and there were many ideas how to do that. And you probably have your own ideas. If you want to tell me how you will do it, I will like it, if anyone has an idea. What is the unique metric I need to be worried to be successful with a design system? The number of features in product using components we created. This is exactly how we measure. That's the only thing we need to measure to make the things here happening and actually deliver value. That's the only thing you need to measure. And think about that, it's very simple. It's very simple. And it's so simple, which, in fact, sorry, this is a very corporate slide, as someone told me, not mentioning who. But basically, we had to, it's a corporate, right? So I need to justify, this is actually better than what is around, right, for us. And what was happening is, this is like pretty much the effort we have for creating UI in a software. And this is actually the kind of implementation we had, so the amount of product using it. And what we observed, and the trigger happened pretty much at this stage, what we observed is the thing, after few implementations, start increasing them dramatically. We went immediately in few months, this is about months, minus 20%. These things got even more, around minus 40% last year. Again, this is not forced. This is not forced, because the idea is you don't have two people using your product because they are obliged to use your product, because otherwise you're not successful. You don't learn anything. And this basically means that the biggest result was we cut it by 40% that 50%. We plan to get even lower, but this is coming over time. Right? I don't know if I will be even there to do it, but yeah, the idea is to get even more. Because what is happening is, and this is another thing I want to tell you about those slides, is most of the image you see on the background, they are actually Adidas products. So this particular one is a machine which is used to create a shoe. Why I show this picture is because if you want to be innovative and you don't change the way you do things, you cannot be innovative. You can't. And this was actually the reason why a design system could have a huge impact. And I think this one can be applied to any of the product you work on. This is actually the shoes, right? This is very specific shoes. The machine is helping to do that. And this midsole, this is called midsole, is like this one. It is 3D printed. This is going to be, these shoes won so many awards. It's called Strong. If you want to look it, because it was one of the best designed shoes. And biotechnology is probably the most innovative technology. And the reason why it's so technological is because this shoes is entirely engineered by a software using that hardware. What I want to leave with is what actually I learned as a takeaway. And I hope you guys can resonate with it. when you try to standardize things, accept compromise. Accept it. You're not going to be perfect. So in my case, it's okay if we have different font sizes and different product for whatever reason. And I can give you like an example why it's okay. Because having the same code base, the same architecture is way more valuable. It sounds bad, but it's actually true. Think at scale. Design systems in general are actually need to be like treated as product. It is a product. If you're not a product owner, ask for help to product owner because you need to manage like that. And you need to develop your leadership because you need to convince lots of people what you are doing is actually making sense. This is a very great opportunity if you ever work in a design system. Build a community around the design system, like a community like yourself. Engage them, let them own it. It's not about you, it's about them. It's about your team. It's about the product teams. It's not about you, it's never going to be about you. And this is, by the way, the software using the design system to manage that machine who create the shoe. Do not fail in the trap of gambling, creating features. It's not going to work. It is not going to work. It's not working for the design system. It's not working for any product. There is no such a thing called user experience design without research. Use research. Keep things simple because they are important. Simplicity. We sold here and there as a designer simple things. Well, do it. Do it. And be open. You do mistake, I do mistake, and if nobody's telling you are doing mistake, there are two things wrong. Either you are a terrible leader, a dictator, like you were saying, and means you are a terrible leader, so the team doesn't trust you, right? And people around you, they just don't have the guts to tell you something is wrong. So accept, embrace the feedback, especially when it's negative. Because when they were talking about failure, that's how you are doing something wrong. When someone telling, dude, this is screwed, stop it. Because that's important. This is important for your profession and for your personal growth. That's how you deal with people. And merci. And of course, if you have any question, please go ahead.
I do want to hear your story about the Figma people. I'm one of the Figma people, so I want to hear it.
Okay, at Adidas is a good customer, right? We don't spend €100. We spend millions for each. Also for Figma, yes. And I can tell you recently what they made, by the way. So, Figma people, they are very aggressive. And I don't have any problem with aggressive people. It's all good. I told to them, I like your product. It's helping us to be faster, really faster. But then they did something which was very annoying to me. They reached every single product team to convince them the enterprise license, which I don't know if any of you knows they have an enterprise license. Do you know?
I'm going through the negotiation with them right now. We want to switch to Figma. Man, this is awful.
See, so this is the thing, right? I don't have any problem with having the enterprise things. I think is overly priced, too priced. It's not worth that money. They forced us to sign a 2 years contract, which I say, okay, we can sign a 2 year contract. And we signed for the what was the name of the other license? No, FigJam, it's okay. We have everything. We have FigJam, Miro, even if they are the same, nobody cares, but we have it. What's the name of the other license plan they have? They have before enterprise. Teams. So before they sold us team, and I say to the product designer leaders, I say, guys, are you okay with that? Yes, we are okay. Then they did something which I hate. Literally, I hate. And if someone does this to you, slap them. Because it's awful. So they went there, they reached a bunch of designers offering them tickets for conferences, so where they can show off how good they are. And if you're a junior designer, you like it, obviously. And then basically they both their way for us to pay 40% more, which it was to me very annoying. And this behavior of convincing the audience around you to convince you, it's something I don't like. Because you can be a very good product, you can have a very good product, but you can not create those black patterns to steal the money. Because that's soulful. So those are the guys of Figma. Nobody of you knows them. Happy day. It's a good product.
We have a question, yeah?
It's not a question. I just want to add more about Figma, and because they're creating a lot of pain in my ass. Sorry. Those guys, as you mentioned, the person, the manager who was especially works with Crunchyroll and holds all the conversation. From the first day, he was trying to collect as many emails as possible from me, from the people from the company with whom he can communicate to sell Figma. And I was like, you don't need to do that, because I am the person responsible for this decision, and I'll be creating business case. They were even trying to help me create the business case to explain to my leadership why we need to switch to Figma. And I was like, I don't need your help on doing that. You have no idea how the company works, what we need, and so on. So I feel your pain a lot. And this is...
You are an account, and you are trying to sell me a product, which is fine. It's your job. I respect your job. So I asked them, okay, come out with a serious business case with numbers, and I'm fine, right? For how much money they are, okay, I'm fine. They were unable even to justify the price. This is, for me, something which is very annoying. This is the story of Figma, sorry. It's nothing to do.
Well, full disclaimer.
The product is good, by the way.
But, now as a host, I have to come to a disclaimer. We like Figma. We love Figma. It is like, but I think that this is great feedback. I think that I want to think that the people at Figma will appreciate it and will change their ways. And this is also one of the examples where, as an individual contributor, you're just a regular designer, you'd use Figma. It's a great product. It really has improved so many of our processes with engineers and clients and everyone. As a leaders, this is the kind of thing these guys have to deal with. So we feel ya. We do have questions for you, of course.
Yes, I have a question. So designing software products is so different than designing, physical products that you put in stores. So how is that different? Because me, I am on the IT side, and I've been in software for so long. How is it different for physical products that actually people go and touch in stores?
So I think this one is what I think, because I mean, of course it's different, right? So I think it's different mostly because the production is different, right? And these things you need to understand the industrial way to do things, right? So making a release, right, in product is not an event. Like Google, Amazon, they do every second and half. So it's a non-event, right? And this is the biggest difference, I think. Because doing this requires 18 months. 18 months. It is an event. Like making a car from the first sketch for an industrial product requires some years. It is an event. You need to be sure the process, and that's why they use a lot waterfall. It's exactly this is the reason, because it's something so long, they need to minimize the risk. Because, I mean, we had a problem in the past, and we basically did, because we take so long to do certain product. So a product which like this is called totally new for us, right? Totally new is a way of development. It means everything is new. Shoes, like the below part of the shoes, this middle part, the upper part can be exchanged. Sometimes if you have the chance, you pay attention, you can exchange them, right? I mean, even with the Nikes, it was always the same, right? And when you do a totally new, if the product is completely screw, It's cost money a lot. So, and you need to make sure is sustainable like any other product, is viable, right? So actually can be made and is gonna bring money back, because otherwise it's people, if people doesn't want it, you have a problem. And in the past we had this problem at Adidas, right? So what we are trying to do, and this was the first product to actually run it, we were trying to do to short the time, right? To short the time. So what the designer design, we are trying to help them to design directly in 3D, put the content for certain product immediately on Instagram, TikTok, or whatsoever, and gather feedback. There is an interest in something like that, good, we do it. If not, maybe it's not a good idea. There is a company, a Chinese company called Shine, I don't know if you know it. They sell very cheap things. They are basically revolution. They are the master of doing that. They do real-time fashion. Before there was Zara, Gap doing fast fashion, they call it real-time fashion. They are basically putting in their application product which are not existing, but since they are so fast to go on production, they do it. When you buy it, they ship to you after a month, because in that month they create it. This, for the dimension of production and sourcing, it's quite a lot of cost cutted. So there is differences for obvious reason. As a designer, however, you approach the things in the same way. You think about who is going to use it, why you need to buy it. You need to try to be aesthetically pleasant, because that's what you do. In that sense, there is. The production, no, is completely different, and it should be. I hope I answered it. That's a very like controversial questions, because as a matter of fact, you do. As a matter of fact, you do. We do. Of course we do. We cannot say it because it's not really legal. So we do, but not really. Because there is, when you work with aesthetic, right? When you work with aesthetic, and these things is aesthetic, right? We know certain things. So let's say the legging KPI we want to achieve, which is more sales, is actually driven by certain preferences influenced by other things happening in the environment our consumer are actually operating. So we do. However, these are very controversial questions because it's actually ethically acceptable. I think is not. Yet we do. And I give you like a practical example if you want. So we operate, especially in our online business, what we call hype. I don't know if you know Kanye West. Yeah, you know Kanye West. Kanye West does shoes with Adidas. And it's called Yeezy, correct. So Yeezy shoes has a particularity thing. So we didn't invent it. We observed from somewhere else. We observed from Supreme. The shortage of the product make people want to buy that. And not only, when they buy it, they want to expose on internet they actually made it. That, well, I'll tell you something. This idea of presenting the shortage is actually completely fake. When we realize we reach our financial objective, we cut the sale. There are still products, but we don't sell more. This is because we know this will generate to people eager to come back and rebuy that one. By the way, those shoes are 300 euro shoes, pretty much, so don't know if you know them, but that's how it works, right? And this is based on neuroscience. And we observed it by someone else. I think was the tipping point was when you focus on what is valuable for them, right? You understand also what motivates them. And one of the things designers, but also developers, they don't like, is being treated as a shipping machine. Do code, do design, good. They want to own things. So when I went there, I was giving them ownership of this thing. I say, guys, I'm helping you to get the money. I'm helping you to promote it, but you do it. So I'm just giving you like a direction you need to take. Most of the things you saw, I never touched. I honestly don't even have access to the prototype, to be honest with you. But I convinced them to do because they want to own it. And when they own it, they have a purpose. And when they have a purpose, they are very motivated. And these things became popular because there, they are free to do whatever they want. And they feel immediately they are having an impact. So the OKR things was the Intel way to connect daily job of people to the actual result of the company, giving a purpose to people. And it's a complicated job, right? Because not all the culture in organization are doing that, right? So if you do understand that, you have like people buying in for you. Developer and designer, which they are the main users, the main customers of a design system. They are the users. So it works for them. And on top, you give them ownership, happy day. You're done.
Let's give each other a round of applause.